Thank you. Yes. So blockchain is like my key research area. So my PhD, I looked at using blockchain to estimate carbon in construction supply chains. So if we look at the construction supply chains, like all the biggest problem in the construction industry is the fact that the construction industry is fragmented and that the stakeholders are not connected to one another, or there are trust issues, or like people are reluctant to trust each other, and because of that there are some practical issues in the construction industry. Then there are delays caused due to certain issues, and this is some aspects that can be improved using blockchain, because blockchain is a technology that uses that has like various qualities. Like you can make it a very trustworthy platform, you can make it very secure, so that um, like confidential data can be stored away from the blockchain, because now the biggest problem is people are worried if we share information in blockchain will it be visible to everyone, but it's not the case. In blockchain you can store confidential data off chain, not on blockchain, and then protect the identity. So there are various ways that it can be done. But as a technology, because blockchain has those various features like immutability, the difficulty to hack, like that's why we say it's a very secure system. Because of that, we say it's trustworthy. We can say that it's like accountability is high, where you can audit the transactions, what happened, like you can monitor the history. So it can improve the construction supply chain related issues and resolve them, rather than a simple database, like a traditional database. So that's why I would recommend using blockchain to resolve these problems. So the construction industry is known as one of the highest contributors in waste and carbon emissions. So now, as the question is on circular economy, I'll focus on waste aspects. So particularly as a biggest contributor towards waste, construction industry is looking at like ways to reduce waste and look at other options. Like, of course, we always used to talk about the linear economy, where take, make, dispose concept was what was practiced, but now everybody is talking about this circular economy, on how we can contribute back, or how we can make things sustainable so that we can reduce its impact to the atmosphere, to the environment, and all. So, because of that, of course, circular economy is the solution, but it's not easy to go there. It's not just a one-step process, of course. Because of that, there are, like, of course, the government has to take necessary actions to implement these in the industry. So as a result, I think like various countries have developed various policies, frameworks. Now, if I talk about the Australian context, so they recently introduced a framework called Australia Circular Economy Framework, where it has certain like targets, what to achieve, when to achieve, like it's a target up to 2035, as I remember. So they're looking at various ways to reduce the material footprint, for example, like material footprint to be reduced by 10%, like to improve material productivity by 30%, like recover at least 80% of the resources. So there are like targets and priorities that they have established, where construction industry is part of it. So there is like different frameworks that are introduced like by other countries as well, but this would be the first step, of course. But the next step would be to introduce policies and introduce various maybe tax mechanisms, or like, for example, there are methods like carbon tax. In the same way, if we can introduce tax related things, so that, or benefits for those who are practicing proper circular economy practices, so that the construction or the builders will be interested in practicing these even in the construction site, so that they gain a benefit out of it, because it always has to be a benefit for them. It could be a cost benefit, or it could be some sort of a benefit. It would be like the encouragement for people to participate in these. So as I mentioned previously also, like in my project, I looked at estimating embodied carbon in construction supply chains using blockchain. So when we talk about carbon estimating, there are two main methods of doing that. We call it as a process-based method or input-output based method, and some use hybrid method as well. But in my case, I introduced a process-based method where I looked at estimating embodied carbon using first principles, like similar to what we, like in construction management, we prepare rate breakdowns using first principles, like looking at material, labor, equipment use. In the same way, I looked at how much of fuel is consumed by each and every activity in a construction supply chain. And I estimated the embodied carbon based on that. So this is like the most accurate way of estimating carbon, because currently what we use is existing databases or existing tools, like databases like maybe ICE or Black Book, or tools like eTool, LCD, or Gabby. But the only problem is, because we are using data stored in that database, accuracy could be questionable, because if we know the exact fuel amount that was used, it would be more accurate, not an estimate. So that's why we introduce that method where you can actually, I developed a prototype system using blockchain where you can input the data. So if you know the full quantities, when you enter that, you just get the final estimate. Like this application does that for you. But the only difficulty that I faced when collecting data from the industry is most of the construction sites don't maintain the full quantity used per day or anything like that. They would probably have just full use for maybe a month or something of that sort, not particularly per activity or something. But still, my prototype could be adjusted to that as well. So that would be still helpful if we can accurately calculate the actual embodied carbon emissions in a construction project. So women in construction is one of the recent projects that I've been involved in, and it's a very interesting area to research on, to be honest. So currently, of course, we would like to see like gender equality, where we have 50 male, even in the cohorts, even in the student cohorts at the universities. We would prefer to see if we have equal enrollments, like male, female, to be 50-50 in our enrollments. But currently, when we look at the numbers, it's not the case. It would vary between 20 to 30% of female, and like majority, or 70 to 80% being male in some of the construction degrees. So from that point onwards, we've understood that, of course, if we don't have enrollments equally, that means the people entering the industry is also not going to be gender equal. So that's why there is like high trend in researching to understand how can we promote women in construction. And I've been involved in one of the recent projects where I'm conducting outreach activities. So we have a collaboration project with UNSW. So UNSW is based in Sydney. So as part of that, I am conducting research for South Australia. So Adelaide is in South Australia. So in that project, what we are looking at is we are going to various high schools to promote women in construction. So we started contacting and connecting with the students itself in high schools and even the younger students, like years 5 onwards. We've been doing various outreach activities, like we do hands-on activities, we do talks on women in construction, like for them to know that there are disciplines like this which are interesting, and because it could be a fact that they are not aware of the existence of some of the degrees, because when construction industry being a male dominant industry, the lack of knowledge is like the biggest barrier we felt. So when we go up there, it's good to talk to them and let them know that this is a very safe space, this is a very good degree, and like we promote all our degrees when we go to these schools. So that has been quite effective. So in the same way, I feel what more to be done. I feel more government funding being allocated for this would be helpful too, because the students are aware of STEM particularly, but STEM is a broad area. But I feel there has to be more funding allocated for construction as well, like women in construction related areas, so that we can continue this. I feel it has to not just be the students, but also parents. It has to be like a generational knowledge that has to be distributed, so that it would impact everyone in a good way, so that we can have more women involvement in construction. So now I am researching on digital technologies plus sustainability aspects. So I do teach one of the courses that we call Digital Design and Construction Fundamentals. So in this course, I give them a flavor of what digital technologies are. So I mean, the key area of this is BIM, of the course is BIM. So I teach them BIM in detail. They learn Revit from scratch, because in our degree, we have a few courses on Revit or courses on BIM where they learn to develop BIM models and practice like various aspects of it, like simulations to everything as they progress in their degree. So I teach the first years. Because of that, I teach them the very basics of them. But along with that, I give them a flavor of other digital technologies. So what blockchain is, what digital twin is, what AR, VR, all these things are. So it's quite interesting to know that the students are very keen to know what these things are, and they catch, like they understand these technologies very easily, which is good to see, because from their younger days, I feel from school curriculums, they get this touch. Like, for example, some students that I visited, like in one of the schools, they have been introduced to Revit in one of their classes. So that was very interesting to know. And some of them have worn these VR helmets, and like they've all done these little exploration things in various exhibitions. So it was very interesting to know that they are keen in learning these things. So I try to incorporate them into my curriculums as much as possible. So in one of my other courses that I do teach measurement, even for that, I've allocated like one guest lecture on 5D BIM, so that they get to know how they can prepare a cost estimate out of a BIM model using Revit. So likewise, I try to incorporate like digital technologies a lot, but in sustainability related aspects, there are some other courses that are done by other researchers or other lecturers at University of Adelaide. Because of that, that is not an aspect that I touch a lot. But Digital technologies is something that I definitely incorporate. I have incorporated into the curriculum at the moment.